When you look, Kayla, at what is happening right now, talk about how President Joe Biden, whom you cover and have covered for the last number of years while he's been in the White House, how must he be feeling about all of this and the incredible effort that he, his administration, the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, also Brett McGurk, the Middle East envoy, trying to negotiate what we're seeing come to fruition. It's happening less than 24 hours before he leaves office. Talk about what went into getting to this point.
Well, Alex, I can tell you that this is something that the Biden administration absolutely wanted to do before President Biden left office. It has really been months in the making since we saw Biden initially announce this framework that we're seeing implemented now. But something that is really complicated for him right now is because Donald Trump, of course, has taken credit for seeing this deal come together. And I think my colleagues in the Middle East have really said that it was his warnings that really upped the pressure and the urgency to get this deal done, because, of course, he has reiterated multiple times that there would be hell to pay for Hamas if hostages were not released by the time he took office on January 20th. So there's really a complicated legacy here. It's really something that he wanted to burnish his policy legacy here, and yet Donald Trump still overshadowing him in this moment.
Well, let's go back to you, Rolf, because we also see more activity. What's happening there behind you? Have they just gone by you, any of the hostages?
Alex, you are just seeing the tail ends of a convoy of those large white vans and Israeli security vehicles coming past. And we believe that all three of those hostages were in that big white van, that they came off the helipad. They drove past us here. There was a big cry, cheering from the crowd here. It was all just a couple of seconds and they were past. You can imagine a lot of thought has gone into the logistics, into the medical protocols. But we believe that at this moment, behind those plastic screens, the hostages are stepping out of that van. They're walking into the main lobby of Sheba Hospital. And this is likely to be their home for the foreseeable. This is going to be a long, long journey of recovery for them. But we think right now they are meeting the medical teams who are going to take care of them as they begin to recover.
Yeah,
Alex.
well, that is a joyful thing. Boy, I tell you, it's such relief. And with their mothers by their side, it is extraordinary. I do want to bring in Stuart Stevens as well. Stuart, I'm curious, when you look at this big picture, all that is happening on this pivotal day, which will be followed tomorrow by yet another pivotal day as we move officially from one administration to the next. You see hostages being released as a result of 15 months of efforts on behalf of the Biden administration. And then in the last couple of weeks, the addition of Steve Witkoff, the Middle East envoy there for the incoming Trump administration. You see that, and you see the incoming commander-in-chief as well at Arlington laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Big picture, what is going through your mind on this extraordinary day?
I think that what we saw at Arlington is in the best American tradition. I'm for these normalization of all of this. We should have everything should be normal. President is a temporary position. You are there as a custodian of the legacy of what it means to be American. So, Donald Trump has said horrible things about America's military. I mean, going back to when he said that John McCain was not a hero. So a moment like this, it doesn't undo that, but I think it's positive that he's doing it. And I can't help but think, looking at these hostages, the horror that they have been through, I have to just think about how disgraceful it is that Donald Trump refers to the criminals who were arrested on January 6th as hostages. There is just no comparison whatsoever. And, everybody wants to hope that Donald Trump is going to be a successful president. There's nothing to be gained if he's not. But if you look at some of these nominees, like Pete Hegseth, the idea that he's a veteran, great. But there's a lot of veterans who are much more qualified. And I personally believe that Trump nominates someone like Hegseth. I think he knows that he's a buffoon, but he wants to prove that he can exert his will over these senators many of whom he knows have great doubts about him. So there's sort of a humiliation to subservience going on here. And it's a very autocratic process to do that. And I wish that the Republican senators had stood up. I wish that Senator Wicker, my former Mississippi client, had insisted that Donald Trump appoint someone who's a competent conservative, who has a history. I don't think that Roger Wicker would let Pete Hegseth cut his lawn. I mean, this guy shows up tattooed, drinks on the job, has this history with women. You're not going to let that guy near your house. And yet here he is going to be in this tremendously powerful position. And this is just also unnecessary. And it goes to the sort of flaw of Donald Trump's character, that he has to use the public policy, being in the White House, to work through these personal issues, retribution. What sort of theme is that to enter a presidency?
And yet, Stuart, despite everything I've heard, and there'll be many, many people who agree with you, I will describe myself as a glass half full kind of girl until proven that it's actually half empty. So are you thinking, perhaps unlike our former guest and good friend, Congressman Jake Auchincloss, who I'm sure had to leave, although he was with us extended for our coverage of the delayed ceremony in Arlington at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, he said he does not expect Donald Trump to change at all. And yet, with every new administration, there is the hope for change. Do you think Donald Trump has the capacity to, with his advisors, with people around him, to unify this country in a more positive way going forward?
I don't think Donald Trump can change. I mean, look, if you had a friend, a female friend who was marrying a 78-year-old guy, and she said, you know, there's a lot of things I don't like about him, but he promises to change. What would you tell that friend? You would say, you better like what you're getting, because 78-year-old men don't change. And Donald Trump's character and personality has been in display for decades. Now, you know, you want to hope for the best for the country. You want to hope that Marco Rubio, who I think is he's going to be nominated or confirmed with bipartisan support. There could have been more nominees like him, and there are a couple more. You hope that he's a great Secretary of State. You hope at the end of the day that Donald Trump would be seen as a great president. I mean, I felt this way. I worked for Mitt Romney when Barack Obama was elected. That's what you should believe as an American. But it doesn't mean that you have to suspend disbelief and suspend knowledge of what you know about Donald Trump. Yeah. And it shouldn't hesitate. No one should be hesitant to criticize Donald Trump.
Well, we've certainly heard a lot of that. I want to thank you both. I know we had planned to talk on a number of issues, but thank you so much for helping us through this breaking news on this quite extraordinary day. Both of you, Akayla and Stuart, thank you.